Laughter erupted inside the Galactic Council chamber as the human ambassador's plea to reactivate an ancient warship was callously dismissed, unaware that the vessel's slumbering weapons were already powering up, ready to unleash fiery vengeance on the arrogant council. Did you see their primitively flat faces when that human marched into the chamber, demanding that rusted scrap heap be brought back online? Speaker slapped his knee, his four eyes squinting with mirth as he leaned back in the lavish chair of his opulent office. Tharo nodded gravely, gazing out the reinforced window at the bustling galactic capital. Towering skyscrapers and sleek shuttles dotted the cityscape below. The human's audacious request definitely caused an uproar. The Zorgons looked ready to airlock him, and the Quiltar nearly passed out. Wilson is a fool. Humans are irrelevant relics. Their once mighty warships are decrepit museums at best. Speaker waved his hand dismissively. That stunt was a futile attempt to seem important again. Tharo's brow furrowed with concern. But, sir, was it wise to reject the request outright? Humanity was a formidable power once. Dismissing them could be unwise. Spiker scoffed derisively. They're done, finished. What are they going to do, attack us with that floating junkyard? I'd like to see them try. He chuckled, his laughter tinged with scornful condescension. But even as the diplomat's mocking laughter echoed through the room, a low rumble started building from the distant spaceport. The sound grew, an ominous mechanical growl that made the floor tremble beneath their feet. The human warship was coming to life, ancient weapons systems activating one by one. Humanity needed this ship to protect Earth from the rapidly advancing Craxian invasion fleet. The Council had left them no choice. This museum relic was now the only thing standing between humans and total annihilation. As the warship's engines roared to life, Tharo felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. The Council's arrogance may have just condemned them all. The human vessel was ancient, but it was far from harmless, and now, backed into a corner, the humans were ready to fight with all they had to save their species. The ship's weapons, once dormant, now crackled with barely restrained power. The Council had laughed, but now the humans were deadly serious. This relic was their last hope, and it was now more dangerous than ever. Tharo nodded, his posture stiff. He grabbed the armrests, leaning forward towards Spiker, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. But, sir, there's more to the story than we realized. After the council meeting ended, I was in the hall. I overheard Wilson speaking to another human, discussing their warship. Speaker quirked an eyebrow. He smirked, waving a hand. Oh, please enlighten me, Tharo. This ought to be amusing. Tharo glanced over his shoulder, then continued. The humans were talking about the USS Endeavour. According to Wilson, it's not some ancient relic. The ship has apparently been outfitted with highly advanced human tech, weaponry beyond anything we've encountered. What? Impossible! Speaker barked a laugh. The humans are washed up, a shell of their former selves. They couldn't possibly have developed anything noteworthy, not after centuries of irrelevance. Tharo shook his head. There's more. Wilson mentioned a secret human initiative called Project Lazarus. From what I gathered, the goal was to restore humanity's warships to their past strength. Wilson claimed the Endeavour has cutting-edge shields, weapons and engines now. Speaker's eyes widened. His smug grin faltered. Project Lazarus, I've never heard of such a thing. Tharo, are you absolutely certain about this? The humans could just be bluffing. I know what I heard, sir. Wilson sounded completely certain that the Endeavour could take on any ship out there. He seemed to truly believe the upgrades made it superior to the Council race's vessels. Speaker stroked his chin. His face darkened, brows knitting together. This is an unexpected development. We may have underestimated the humans. Put the intelligence division on high alert. I want eyes and ears on the humans at all times, especially this Wilson fellow. If there's any truth to this Project Lazarus business, I want to know about it immediately. Speaker's communicator buzzed, a harsh electronic grating that snapped him out of his contemplative funk. You gonna get that, sir? Tharo asked, arching an eyebrow. Speaker tapped the comm. A holographic image of Captain Zerax, a grizzled Zorgon mercenary leader, popped up. Zerax's reptilian face was bloodied, his battle armor dented and smoking. "Speaker!" he barked. "What the hell is going on with this human ship?" "Captain Zerax," Speaker said coolly. "I hear there was an incident at the spaceport. Care to explain?" Zerax snarled, his forked tongue flicking out. "We tried to board the human vessel like you ordered, but they have some kind of advanced energy shield. Our weapons couldn't penetrate it." "I gave no such order," Speaker snapped. "The Council did not sanction any boarding action." But you said," Zerax spluttered. He shook his head. "Never mind that now. This human ship, it's not like anything I've ever seen. When we attacked, it locked weapons on us. Advanced stuff, way beyond standard human tech. We're lucky they didn't fire." Speaker and Tharo exchanged a glance. Speaker leaned forward. "Captain, are you absolutely certain about the Endeavor's capabilities? The humans have been a third-rate power for centuries." "I know what I saw," Zerax growled. "That ship has teeth. The human Captain Wilson, he contacted me directly, said if we tried to board again he'd destroy us, and I believe him." "Thank you, Captain," Speaker said. "Stand down for now. Do not engage the humans again without a direct order from me or the Council. Is that clear?" "Crystal," Zerax grumbled. The hologram winked out. Speaker sat back, his face grim. Tharo shifted in his seat. "Sir, this is concerning. If the humans have secretly developed advanced military technology, it could upset the balance of power in the galaxy." "Indeed," Spiker murmured. He steepled his fingers, his eyes distant. "We need more information. Tharo, I want you to dig into this Project Lazarus. Find out everything you can about the Endeavor's capabilities and the humans' intentions." "Right away, sir," Tharo said, standing up. "And what about Wilson and his crew?" "For now we watch and wait," Speaker said. "Let them think their little display of force has bought them some breathing room, but quietly put the word out to our allies. I want the humans under constant surveillance. If they so much as twitch in a way we don't like, I want to know about it." "Understood." Tharo hurried out of the office, his mind already racing with plans and possibilities. Speaker turned back to the window, gazing out at the gleaming spires of the galactic capital. The humans had surprised him today. That was not a pleasant feeling. The great game of galactic politics had just become far more complicated, and if he was going to come out on top, he needed to start planning his next move very carefully. Tharo's communicator beeped again, harsh and urgent. With a furrowed brow he read the new message, eyes scanning rapidly. His face went slack, disbelief etched in every line. "Sir, you won't believe this." Tharo's voice was hushed, almost reverent. "The USS Endeavor. It just disappeared." Speaker's head snapped up, his full attention now riveted on Tharo. "Disappeared? What the hell do you mean, disappeared?" Tharo shook his head, still staring at the comm screen. "The spaceport authorities say the Endeavor was powering up its engines, preparing for departure. Then it just vanished. Poof, gone from every sensor grid. It's like the ship just blinked out of existence." Speaker shot to his feet, chair clattering to the floor behind him. He stalked over to Tharo, snatching the communicator from his aide's hands. His eyes raked over the message, a scowl deepening on his face with every word. "That's impossible," he growled. "No cloaking tech is that good. I don't care how advanced the humans think they are. A ship can't just disappear." Tharo nodded, his shoulders tight with tension. "The port authorities are in a frenzy. They're combing through every scrap of sensor data, every second of security footage. But there's just nothing. No trace of the Endeavor or its crew. It's like they were never there." Speaker paced the room, his footsteps sharp and agitated. His mind raced, trying to make sense of this new impossibility. "This is unprecedented," he muttered, more to himself than to Tharo. "First, the advanced shields, the weapons that make the Zorgons look like children with slingshots. And now this, the humans have been holding out on us, lying to our faces." Tharo hesitated, then cleared his throat. Speaker whirled to face him, eyes narrowed. "What? Spit it out." There's more, sir. Just before the Endeavour disappeared, Wilson, he sent a message to the Council. Speaker's eyes widened. He took a step towards Tharo, looming over the smaller diplomat. What did it say? Tharo fumbled with his communicator, pulling up the message with shaking fingers. He read aloud, his voice quavering slightly. To the esteemed members of the Galactic Council, the USS Endeavour thanks you for your hospitality. However, in light of recent events, we have decided to take our leave. Speaker snatched the communicator out of Tharo's hands again, reading the rest of the message himself, his lips moving silently. We have our own mission to pursue, one that requires the utmost secrecy. Rest assured, our intentions are peaceful, but we will not hesitate to defend ourselves if threatened. Speaker's grip tightened on the communicator, his knuckles whitening. The galaxy will hear from us again when the time is right. Until then, remember that humanity is not to be underestimated. Signed, Captain John Wilson, USS Endeavour. The communicator cracked in Speaker's grip, sparks sputtering from its crushed innards. He hurled it against the wall with a snarl of rage. Tharo flinched as it shattered, components scattering across the polished floor. Speaker sank into his chair, his face slack with shock. The unmitigated gall, he whispered. The sheer, brazen audacity. These humans, they stride into the heart of the Council, making demands. They reveal technology, capabilities beyond our wildest imaginings, and then they have the nerve to simply vanish, to disappear without a trace, after throwing their superiority in our faces. Speaker's fists clenched, his eyes hard as flint. What are you up to, Wilson? What is your game? Speaker slammed his fist on the table, the sound echoing through the room like a thunderclap. This is unacceptable. The humans are playing a dangerous game, and we're being left in the dark. Tharo nodded, his fingers flying across his communicator as he pulled up more information. The Quiltar are in a state of panic. They're mobilizing their fleet, preparing for the worst. Spiker stood abruptly, his chair clattering to the floor behind him. He paced the room, his footsteps heavy and agitated. The humans have been one step ahead of us this entire time. Their technology, their capabilities, it's like something out of a fever dream. Tharo looked up from his communicator, his face grim. What do we do, sir? The Council will be demanding answers, and we have none to give. Spiker stopped pacing, his eyes hard and determined. We find answers, Tharo. We dig deeper than we ever have before. I want every scrap of intelligence we have on the humans reviewed and analyzed. I want our best minds working around the clock to unravel the mystery of the Endeavour and its crew. Tharo stood, his posture straightening with resolve. I'll get on it immediately, sir. I'll assemble a team of our top analysts and have them start combing through the data. Spiker nodded, his jaw tight. Good. And Tharo, I want you to personally oversee this investigation. You've shown a keen eye for detail and a knack for uncovering the truth. I'm counting on you to get to the bottom of this. Tharo's eyes widened slightly, surprised by the weight of the responsibility being placed on his shoulders, but he nodded, his expression hardening with determination. I won't let you down, sir. I'll find out what the humans are up to, no matter what it takes. Speaker clapped Tharo on the shoulder, his grip firm. I know you will, my friend. The fate of the Galactic Order may very well rest in your hands. As Tharo hurried out of the room, his mind already racing with plans and possibilities, Speaker turned back to the window. The gleaming spires of the galactic capital seemed to mock him, their beauty and grandeur a stark contrast to the chaos and uncertainty that now gripped the galaxy. The humans had changed everything, their sudden resurgence, their advanced technology, their mysterious agenda. It all threatened to upend the delicate balance of power that had held the galaxy together for centuries. Spiker's fists clenched at his sides, his knuckles whitening with the force of his grip. He would not let the humans destroy everything he had worked so hard to build. He would find out what they were up to, and he would stop them, no matter the cost. The communicator on his desk beeped, the sound harsh and insistent in the silence of the room. Spiker strode over to it, his movements sharp and purposeful. He tapped the screen, his eyes narrowing as he read the message scrolling across the display. It was from the Zorgon High Command. They were requesting an emergency meeting of the Council, demanding answers about the human ship and its apparent incursion into Quiltar space. Speaker's lips curled into a snarl. The Zorgons were always quick to anger, their first instinct to lash out with violence and aggression. He would have to handle them carefully, lest they do something rash and plunge the galaxy into chaos. He tapped out a quick response, confirming his attendance at the meeting and promising to provide what information he could. But even as he hit send, he knew that he would have precious little to offer. The humans had played their cards close to the vest, revealing only what they wanted the galaxy to see. Speaker turned back to the window, his gaze hard and unflinching. The game had changed, and he would need to adapt quickly if he hoped to come out on top. The humans had made their move, and now it was his turn to respond. He would not fail. He could not fail. The galaxy was counting on him, even if they didn't know it yet. Speaker's communicator beeped again, the sound like a klaxon in the quiet of the room. He glanced down at the screen, his eyes widening at the message that greeted him. It was from Tharo, 2 words simple and yet full of profound implications. They're back. Tharo's communicator chimed again, an urgent staccato that shattered the tense silence in Speaker's office. Tharo's eyes flicked down, scanning the message. His face drained of color. Sir, we have a serious problem. The Zorgons have just declared war on the humans. Spiker shot to his feet, his chair clattering to the floor behind him. What? On what grounds? Tharo's fingers flew across his communicator, pulling up more information. Apparently, the Zorgons intercepted a transmission from the Endeavor to an unknown recipient. They claimed the message contained sensitive information about Zorgon military installations and weaknesses. Spiker paced the room, his brow furrowed. His footsteps were sharp against the polished floor. That doesn't make sense. Why would the humans have that kind of information, and why would they be sharing it with anyone? Tharo shook his head, his shoulders tight with tension. I don't know, sir, but the Zorgons are using this as a pretext for war. They're demanding that the Council sanction a full-scale assault on human space. Spiker whirled to face Tharo, his expression stern. His eyes were hard, his jaw set. This is a disaster. If the Zorgons attack the humans, it could trigger a galactic war. We must find a way to defuse this situation before it escalates. Tharo hesitated, then spoke up, his voice strained. There's something else, sir. The Zorgons claim that the Endeavor's advanced technology poses a direct threat to their security. They're demanding that the humans hand over all information about Project Lazarus and their new capabilities. Spiker's eyes narrowed, his lips pressing into a thin line. Project Lazarus again. It seems to be at the center of all this. We need to find out what it is, and why the humans are being so secretive about it. Tharo nodded, his fingers still dancing across his communicator. What should we do, sir? Spiker took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling heavily. He turned to the window, his gaze distant. The gleaming spires of the galactic capital seemed to mock him, their beauty and grandeur a stark contrast to the chaos and uncertainty that now gripped the galaxy. We must convene an emergency council meeting, Speaker said, his voice low and determined. We need to get all the facts on the table and find a diplomatic solution. The fate of the galaxy may depend on it. Tharo stood, his communicator clutched tightly in his hand. I'll send out the summons immediately, sir. The council members should be here within the hour. Spiker nodded, his gaze still fixed on the cityscape beyond the window. Good. And Tharo, I want every scrap of information we have on the Endeavor and Project Lazarus compiled and ready to present. We can't afford to go into this meeting blind. Understood, sir. Tharo hurried out of the office, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly too quiet space. Speaker remained at the window, his mind racing. The Zorgon's declaration of war changed everything. What had once been a curious mystery, a puzzle to be unraveled, had now become a matter of galactic security. The stakes were higher than ever, and the consequences of failure were unthinkable. He turned back to his desk, his eyes falling on the shattered remains of his communicator. The humans had a lot to answer for, and he intended to get those answers one way or another. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and he would not let it fall. The communicator on his desk beeped, the sound harsh and insistent in the silence of the room. Spiker strode over to it, his movements sharp and purposeful. He tapped the screen, his eyes narrowing as he read the message scrolling across the display. It was from the Quiltar ambassador. The avian diplomat's message was terse, his words clipped and urgent. Councillor Spiker, the Quiltar Confederacy demands an immediate explanation for the Zorgon's actions. We will not stand idly by while the galaxy is plunged into war. Spiker's communicator chirped harshly, shattering the tense silence that had settled over his office. He glanced down at the screen, his brow furrowing as he read the message. The council is convening in 5 minutes. We need to move now. Tharo nodded, his fingers flying across his own communicator as he followed Spiker out of the office and into the bustling corridors of the Galactic Council headquarters. The two diplomats wove through the throngs of aides and officials, their faces set with grim determination. As they approached the massive double doors of the council chamber, Tharo's communicator buzzed again. He glanced down, his eyes widening as he read the message. "Sir, you need to see this. It's from Captain Wilson of the Endeavour." Spiker stopped in his tracks, turning to face Tharo with a look of surprise. "Wilson, what does he want?" Tharo read the message aloud, his voice low and urgent. "To the esteemed Prilorian diplomats, Spiker and Tharo, I apologize for the secrecy and confusion surrounding our actions. The truth is, the Endeavour is on a mission to prevent a catastrophic event that threatens the entire galaxy. We have reason to believe that a rogue Zorgon faction has obtained an ancient weapon of unimaginable power, capable of destroying entire star systems. Project Lazarus is our attempt to counter this threat." Spiker's eyes narrowed, his mind racing as he processed the information. A rogue Zorgon faction? An ancient weapon? This changes everything. Tharo continued reading, his voice growing more strained with each word. "We have been gathering intelligence on this faction and their plans, which is why we needed to keep our capabilities hidden. The energy surge detected by the Quiltar was not a weapon powering up, but rather a scan to locate the ancient weapon's energy signature. We believe the rogue Zorgons are close to activating the weapon, and we are racing against time to stop them." Spiker nodded, his expression grave. His jaw tightened as the pieces fell into place. This explains the Zorgon's sudden aggression. They're trying to cover up the actions of their rogue faction. Tharo read the final part of the message, his hands shaking slightly. "We need your help, Spacer and Tharo. The Council must not sanction a war against humanity. It would only play into the rogue Zorgon's hands and divert attention from the real threat. We propose a covert operation involving the Endeavour and a small team of trusted allies to infiltrate the rogue Zorgon base and neutralize the ancient weapon. Time is of the essence. We await your response. Captain John Wilson, USS Endeavour." Spiker took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling heavily. He ran a hand over his face, his mind racing with the implications of Wilson's message. This is a lot to process. But if Wilson is telling the truth, we have no choice but to act. We must convince the Council to stand down and trust the humans to handle this threat. Tharo nodded, his expression hardening with resolve. "We have to move fast, sir. The Council meeting is about to start, and we need to present this information before they make any rash decisions." Spiker squared his shoulders, his eyes flashing with determination. "Then let's get in there and do what we have to do. The fate of the galaxy may very well rest on our shoulders." The two diplomats strode forward, pushing open the massive doors of the council chamber. The room was already buzzing with activity, representatives from across the galaxy murmuring and gesticulating as they took their seats. Spiker and Tharo exchanged a final glance, a silent understanding passing between them. They knew the task ahead of them would not be easy, but they were prepared to fight for the truth, no matter the cost. As they took their seats, Spiker's communicator buzzed again. He glanced down, his eyes widening at the message that greeted him. It was from the Quiltar ambassador, and it contained only 2 words. "They're here." The massive doors of the council chamber swung open with a resounding boom, As Speaker and Tharo emerged, their expressions a mix of determination and concern. They had managed to convince the Council to hold off on any rash actions against the humans, but they knew their reprieve was temporary at best. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and time was running out. As they strode down the corridor, their footsteps echoing on the polished stone, Tharo's communicator chimed urgently. He glanced down, his eyes widening as he read the message. "Sir," he said, his voice tight with tension, "it's the Endeavour. They have a lead on the location of the rogue Zorgon base." Spiker stopped in his tracks, turning to face his aide. "Excellent," he said, his eyes glinting with a spark of hope. "What do they need from us?" Tharo scrolled through the message, his brow furrowing. "They're requesting a small team of our best operatives to join them on the mission. Specifically, they want experts in Zorgon technology and infiltration." Speaker nodded, his mind already racing through the possibilities. "I know just the team," he said, a hint of pride creeping into his voice. "Our elite shadow unit has been training for years to deal with Zorgon threats. They're the best we have." Tharo tapped out a quick response on his communicator. "I'll send word to the Endeavour. They'll need to coordinate with our team for the infiltration." But before Tharo could hit send, Speaker's own communicator came to life with an urgent message. He snatched it from his belt, his eyes scanning the text rapidly. As he read, his face paled, his jaw clenching. "By the stars," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "The Quiltar have detected a massive energy surge in the Zorgon sector. They believe the ancient weapon is being activated." Tharo's eyes widened, his grip tightening on his own communicator. "If that weapon is fired, countless lives will be lost. We need to act now." Speaker nodded grimly, his expression hardening with resolve. "Contact the Endeavour. Tell them to proceed with the infiltration immediately. Our shadow unit will rendezvous with them en route. This may be our only chance to stop this madness." Tharo's fingers flew over his communicator, sending the messages with a sense of urgency he had never felt before. Lives hung in the balance, entire worlds at risk of annihilation. They had to succeed. Failure was not an option. As he finished sending the last message, Tharo looked up at Spica, his eyes glinting with a mix of fear and determination. "Let's hope that human ingenuity and our operatives' skills are enough to prevent a catastrophe." Spica placed a hand on Tharo's shoulder, his grip firm and reassuring. "If anyone can pull this off, it's the humans. They've already shown us that they're full of surprises. Now, it's time for us to trust in their abilities and work together to save the galaxy." With that, the two diplomats set off down the corridor, their strides purposeful and determined. The fate of the galaxy rested on the success of this mission, and they would do everything in their power to ensure that the humans and their own operatives had the support they needed. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the time for action had come. As they walked, Speaker's mind raced with the implications of what they had just learned. The Zorgons, one of the most powerful and influential races in the galaxy, had been harboring a rogue faction with access to an ancient weapon of unimaginable destructive power. The thought sent a chill down his spine. He glanced at Tharo, noting the tightness in his aide's jaw, the tension in his shoulders. They were both aware of the stakes, the weight of responsibility that now rested on their shoulders. "We need to keep this quiet," Spiker said, his voice low and urgent. "If word gets out about the Zorgon's rogue faction and this ancient weapon, it could cause a panic. The last thing we need is for the other races to start taking sides." Tharo nodded, his expression grim. "Agreed, sir. We'll need to handle this with the utmost discretion. Our operatives are trained for this kind of mission, but we can't afford any leaks." Spiker's communicator chimed again, and he glanced down at the screen. His eyes widened, and he looked up at Tharo with a mix of surprise and concern. "It's the humans," he said, his voice tight. "They've sent us the coordinates for the rendezvous with our shadow unit, but there's something else." Tharo leaned in, his brow furrowing. "What is it, sir?" Spiker took a deep breath, his expression grave. The Endeavour's sensors have picked up a massive fleet of Zorgon ships heading straight for the coordinates of the rogue faction's base. It looks like they're trying to beat us to the punch. Tharrow's eyes widened, his face paling. If the Zorgons get their hands on that ancient weapon before we do, it would be a disaster, Spiker finished, his voice grim. We can't let that happen. Contact the Shadow Unit. Tell them to double their efforts. They need to reach the rendezvous point before the Zorgons do. Tharrow nodded, his fingers already flying over his communicator. Yes, sir, I'll make sure they understand the urgency of the situation. As Tharrow sent the message, Spiker turned to look out the window, his gaze distant. The stars twinkled in the inky blackness of space, a reminder of the vastness of the galaxy, the countless lives that hung in the balance. We're running out of time, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. If we fail, if that weapon is activated... He didn't finish the thought, he couldn't. The consequences were too terrible to contemplate. Tharrow finished sending the message and looked up at Spiker, his expression a mix of determination and fear. We won't fail, sir. We can't. The humans, our operatives, they'll find a way to stop this madness. Spiker nodded, his jaw clenching with resolve. You're right, Tharrow. We have to believe in them, in ourselves. The galaxy is counting on us, and we won't let them down. With that, the two diplomats quickened their pace, their footsteps echoing through the corridors of the council chambers. They had work to do, and time was running out. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and they would stop at nothing to ensure that the ancient weapon was destroyed and the rogue Zorgon faction was brought to justice. As they rounded the corner, Spiker's communicator chimed once more, the sound harsh and urgent in the tense silence. He glanced down at the screen, his eyes widening at the message that greeted him. It was from the Shadow Unit leader. 3 words, simple and yet full of profound implications. We are go. As Spiker strode towards the council chambers, his steps purposeful and urgent, Tharrow hurried to keep pace. The weight of the revelation hung heavy in the air, the implications staggering. The rogue Zorgons had nearly plunged the galaxy into chaos, all for their own twisted ambitions. The doors to the chambers swung open, revealing the gathered representatives of the galactic powers. Murmurs of confusion and anticipation filled the room as Spiker took his place at the center podium. He cleared his throat, his voice ringing out with authority. Esteemed members of the Council, I come before you today with news of the utmost importance. The crisis that has gripped our galaxy, the threat of an ancient weapon of unimaginable power, has been revealed to be a deception. Gasps of shock and disbelief echoed through the chamber. The Zorgon ambassador, his scales gleaming under the lights, leapt to his feet. Preposterous! The humans have clearly fabricated this story to cover their own misdeeds. Spiker held up a hand, silencing the outburst. I assure you, Ambassador, the evidence is incontrovertible. The USS Endeavour, in cooperation with our own elite Shadow Unit, has uncovered the truth behind this plot. He nodded to Tharrow, who stepped forward, a data crystal in his hand. The rogue Zorgon faction, led by a group of high-ranking officials within the Zorgon government, orchestrated this deception. They manipulated sensor data and employed advanced holographic technology to create the illusion of an ancient weapon. The Zorgon ambassador's eyes widened, his posture stiffening. Lies, the Zorgon Empire would never condone such actions. Spiker's gaze hardened. The evidence suggests otherwise, Ambassador. Captain Wilson and his crew recovered a trove of data from the rogue Zorgon base, detailing their plans and implicating key members of your government. Tharrow inserted the data crystal into the chamber's central display, the information springing to life in a dazzling array of holographic projections. The council members leaned forward, their eyes scanning the damning evidence. The Quiltar representative, her feathers ruffled with agitation, spoke up. If this is true, then the Zorgon Empire has much to answer for. The Galactic Council cannot tolerate such deception and aggression. Spiker nodded, his expression grave. Indeed, the humans have shown remarkable resourcefulness and dedication in uncovering this plot. They have proven themselves to be valuable allies in the face of this crisis. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of voices, each representative clamoring to be heard. Speaker raised his hands, his voice cutting through the din. "Order! We must have order!" As the room settled, Speaker continued. "The Galactic Council must take swift and decisive action. We must root out the corruption within the Zorgon government and ensure that those responsible for this deception are brought to justice." He turned to the Zorgon ambassador, his eyes narrowing. "Ambassador, your government must cooperate fully with the Council's investigation. Any attempt to obstruct or mislead will be met with the harshest consequences." The Zorgon ambassador, his face a mask of barely contained rage, nodded stiffly. "The Zorgon Empire will comply with the Council's demands." Speaker turned back to the assembled representatives, his voice ringing with conviction. "Let this be a reminder to us all. The galaxy faces many threats, both from without and within. It is only through cooperation and vigilance that we can hope to maintain peace and stability." He glanced at Tharo, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "And let us not forget the role that the humans have played in this crisis. They have shown themselves to be worthy partners in the great galactic community." As the council members nodded in agreement, Speaker felt a sense of pride and relief wash over him. The crisis had been averted, the truth revealed. And the humans, once dismissed as irrelevant relics, had proven themselves to be the galaxy's unlikely saviors. The road ahead would not be easy. The Zorgon Empire would need to be held accountable for its actions, and the Galactic Council would need to remain vigilant against future threats. But for now, in this moment of triumph, Speaker allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He turned to Tharo, his voice low and filled with gratitude. "Thank you, my friend. Your tireless efforts have helped to uncover the truth and prevent a catastrophe." Tharo bowed his head, a smile playing across his lips. "It is the humans who deserve our thanks, sir. Their courage and ingenuity have saved us all." Speaker nodded, his gaze drifting to the stars visible through the chamber's expansive windows. "Indeed, the galaxy owes them a great debt, and I have a feeling that this is only the beginning of their story." As the council chamber emptied, Speaker and Tharo made their way through the gleaming corridors of the Galactic Council headquarters. Their footsteps echoed on the polished floors as they walked with purpose, their minds still reeling from the revelations of the day. They approached the docking bay where the Endeavour was berthed, its sleek lines and powerful engines a testament to human ingenuity. The airlock hissed open and they stepped aboard, greeted by the hum of advanced technology and the crisp efficiency of the human crew. Captain Wilson met them in the conference room, his uniform crisp and his face lined with fatigue. He gestured for them to sit, his eyes grave. "Gentlemen," he began, his voice rough with exhaustion, "I want to thank you for your trust and cooperation. Without your support, we couldn't have stopped the rogue Zorgons in time." Speaker inclined his head, his expression solemn. "No, Captain, it is we who should be thanking you. Your actions have saved countless lives and prevented a galactic catastrophe." Wilson's lips quirked in a wry smile. "Just doing our job, Ambassador, but I'm afraid our work is not yet done." Tharo frowned, leaning forward in his seat. "What do you mean, Captain?" Wilson sighed, rubbing his forehead. "The data we recovered from the Zorgon base, it's more troubling than we initially thought. It seems that the rogue faction was just the tip of the iceberg. There's a deeper rot within the Zorgon government, and it extends beyond their borders." Speaker's brow furrowed, his eyes intent. "Are you saying that there are other factions, other races involved in this conspiracy?" Wilson nodded grimly. "I'm afraid so. The evidence points to a network of corruption that spans multiple star systems. It appears that the goal was not just to weaken the galactic powers, but to destabilize the entire region." Tharo shook his head, disbelief etched on his face. But why? What could they possibly hope to gain from such chaos? Wilson's face hardened, his eyes glinting like steel. "Power control, resources, the usual motivations. But there's something else, something we haven't quite figured out yet. It's clear that this conspiracy runs deep, and it will take time to unravel it all." Speaker exhaled heavily, his shoulders slumping. Then it seems our work is just beginning. The Council must be informed, and a full investigation launched. We cannot allow this corruption to fester any longer." Wilson nodded, his jaw tight. "Agreed, but Ambassador, I must warn you. Pursuing this matter will not be without risk. The forces behind this conspiracy are powerful and ruthless. They will not hesitate to silence anyone who threatens to expose them." Tharo met Speaker's gaze, a determined glint in his eye. "Then we must be cautious, but we cannot back down. The future of the galaxy depends on it." Speaker's expression hardened, his resolve unwavering. "Captain Wilson, the Prilorian people stand with you and your crew. Together, we will root out this evil and bring those responsible to justice, no matter the cost." As the meeting concluded, Speaker and Tharo exchanged a look of understanding. They knew that the road ahead would be long and perilous, fraught with danger and uncertainty. But they also knew that with the humans by their side, they had a fighting chance. The Endeavour, once a relic of a bygone era, had proven to be the galaxy's best hope for a brighter future. And as they stepped back out into the bustling corridors of the Council headquarters, Speaker and Tharo knew that the true fight was only just beginning. The conspiratorial forces spread across multiple star systems. They had to be stopped no matter what. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.